listening to Flop Culture, a podcast all about our favourite and some of our not-so-favourite flops. I'm Fionnuala. I hope you're really well. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. If you listened to it, if this is your first time here, happy to have you. Let's get into the news. Now, last week, you will remember me talking about the Paul Mescal, Daisy Edgar-Jones social media posts seemingly referring to maybe something to do with normal people. And, you know, there being speculation that there was going to be a season 2. And I said, absolutely not. And I said this with a lot of confidence. Adam, roll back the tape. All the people who believe we're getting a second season of Normal People, you're deluded, you're deranged. You are wrong. You are just fundamentally wrong. So I did say that they were going to be together in the Actors on Actors series that Variety do, that's shown over in the States, but you can get it here online. I think the first 2 episodes are out. I think the John Hamm, Kristen Wiig episode is out. And I said with a lot of confidence, they're going to be in that. They're not. That was a lie. That was incorrect. I'm not too proud to admit when I'm wrong, girls. Now, I will say all the rest of you were wrong in thinking that it was a second series of Normal People, and I was correct there. But the 2 of them did have to apologise because everyone thought it was a second series. And they had to come out and be like, no, actually, what we're actually doing is we're getting together because we're doing a special marathon screening of Normal People in London. It's in support of PIETA and UNICEF. Paul was like, I'm really sorry that you thought it was going to be a second series. Daisy was like, never say never. And Paul was like, you could tell Paul is desperate to be like, never. But anyway, and he's right. I don't want to know what happens with Conall and Marianne. Leave it the way it is. Anyway, that's what's happening. If you want to go check it out, I'm pretty sure you can still check tickets out or whatever. I'm sure it's in both their bios. It's a charity raffle, so you enter to win a ticket and you can go watch it with them. It's the 12 episodes of Normal People in central London on the 16th of June. And you know what? As my friend Niamh Kingston said, she said, I'm all for charity, but I did really want this to be a second season of Normal People. And that made me laugh. So you know what? That's a good thing that came out of this, I suppose. Sabrina Carpenter, we are getting SC6. Yes, that is right. As I've mentioned previously, Sabrina Carpenter has 5 albums prior to That's That Me Espresso. And you should listen to them because some of them are very good, including her last one, Emails I Can't Send. That came out only in 2022, so go back to that one. But her new album, Short and Sweet, her 6th album, is coming August 23rd via Island Records. Lead single Espresso is absolutely everywhere. Song of the Summer, I think you'll agree, girls. Contender for Bop of the Year? Top of the Bops? I think so. I'm really excited for this. I think the title is interesting. And I'm not trying to get crazy brained about this because I don't think that's where she was going. But given all the discussion around album lengths at the minute, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins came out in defence of Taylor Swift over how long the Georgia Poets Department is. And, you know, seeing this trend of, we're seeing really long albums, but then from other pop artists, you're seeing like really short songs. Like Charli XCX will not do a song that's over 2 minutes for the life of her. Can't wait for Brat, by the way. But I'm wondering that, is this going to reflect the length of the album? I don't know. Given she's like a Swift protege as well. And then I do wonder if this album is going to sustain in the same way that Espresso has and is continuing to do so. I'm very excited, girls, but you know what? I'm really annoyed that I didn't go see her in the Olympia when she played. That was a very silly mistake of mine. Mistakes seem to be the theme of this podcast. And perhaps our lead flop topic, has she made a few of them? Let's talk about it. Jennifer Lopez's impact on the entertainment industry and pop culture is undeniable. She's had an incredibly successful music career across 2 decades with over 80 million records sold worldwide. She's shown her acting chops in performances like Selena and Hustlers. As mentioned previously on this very podcast, she is a leading fragrance entrepreneur, and that's not to be sniffed at. No pun intended. But with peaks come valleys, of which JLo has experienced many, on screen and off. From Jiggly to The Boy Next Door to Brave to Louboutins, JLo has managed to weather many professional storms to inevitably come out on top. The same could be said with regards to her personal life, having endured several high-profile breakups to find her right back to her most high-profile love of them all, Ben Affleck. With the public joyous over Bennifer 2.0, Jen, at one point, was riding high. But then came a 3-part art project that nobody seemed to want but herself, detailing her quest for love and the road back to Ben through an album, a film, and a behind-the-scenes documentary. And while some argue that it is a transparent look at the life of a mega celeb at an interesting juncture in her career while still facing the scrutiny of the spotlight, many have dismissed it as a vanity project. A tour, This Is Me Live, was due to follow, but it's just been cancelled, with Jen saying she's heartsick and wants to spend time with her family. The cancellation coming following reports of poor ticket sales. All while her fairy tale romance finds itself under the microscope once again. How did JLo find herself in this flop era? And how can she get out of it? Joining me to take a macro look at JLo's flop era is showbiz reporter for the Ian Dempsey Breakfast Show on Today FM, the wonderful Shauna O'Reilly. Enjoy. Shauna O'Reilly, thank you so much for joining me on this almost emergency episode of Flop Culture. You got the call up and I really appreciate it.
I am so excited to be here, and I never thought that being such a big JLo fan would come in handy, but here we are, and I'm very happy to talk about her.
There you go. I mean, the world works in mysterious ways, doesn't it? Truly, JLo gives and JLo receives. We had been talking about this because you had said, we'd been talking about you coming on to do an episode anyway, and obviously everyone picks their flop, and you'd said JLo, so I was like, right, perfect, because I felt I obviously watched and witnessed the wave that was This Is Me Now, but I felt like I missed the wave to kind of cover it on the podcast. So I was like, we'll definitely do it kind of like a, you know, in hindsight, whatever, looking back. And then we get the announcement during the week or last week or whatever that the accompanying tour that she was due to go on in the States, that there were lots of issues with that we'll talk about, was cancelled because she was heartsick and wanted to spend time with friends and family, to which I then ran to the phone to Shauna and said, Are you free on Tuesday, Wednesday? I need to record now. We need to get this out now.
Yes, because I need to talk to somebody about it and no one else cares. So I'm delighted to talk to you about it.
Okay, brilliant. Before we get into the kind of current state of affairs and maybe JLo's current flop era, let's go back. Let's go back to a time where she was Jenny from the block, on the way up, you know, enjoying a successful music career, kind of pivoting into acting, rom-com queen, and then kind of almost her entering her first flop era, which maybe was Bennifer 1.0. What do you think? Is that when it all started?
Totally. Like, I was thinking about her career earlier on, and I said, you know what? She's actually had like massive peaks and troughs in her career, and this isn't her first flop, or probably won't be her last. But going back to her early days, so she has had some amazing highlights in her career. She broke through as Selena in 1997, and that was, you know, her performance got really great reviews. It was a commercial hit, and then it was, I think, Out of Sight with George Clooney in 97, and their intense chemistry that catapulted her to kind of mainstream success. And then she decided she didn't want to be pigeonholed as just an actress or a dancer. She wanted to be a pop star too. And I from having watched various bits and pieces of her over the years, her whole thing was that her mother basically said, this sister's the dancer, this sister's the actress, and this sister is the singer, and you are the dancer. And she wanted to prove that she could do all. So 1999 comes, and kind of the Ricky Martin releases Live La Vida Loca, and it's very much the Latin wave. So out comes JLo, Jennifer Lopez. At the time, she hadn't got the JLo moniker at that stage, but her debut single, If You Had My Love, was a massive hit, and like that's where I got on board, because I loved the song. The video was so cool. I was like 12, so it was very edgy to me, and she had like computers in the video, and that was all very new and modern. And so then she like was massive that summer, and had, you know, Waiting for Tonight, and all the way into the early noughties she had some really big songs. And then I suppose the peak of it all was the album This Is Me Then, which was released in 2002, and this was peak Bennifer. So she was in love. There was a massive media circus. The album was very much a kind of a love letter to Ben Affleck. He featured in the videos for some of the songs, which, I mean, really, when you think about it, from what he had done in the past, it didn't feel like something he would be comfortable doing. But there he was in the middle of it all, and they're obviously very much in love. And they had then starred in this movie, Jiggly, which was, I think, where they met on set. And obviously, then they were doing all the press for it. And by the time Jiggly came out, it had reached like this hype frenzy. And then, unfortunately, the movie was absolutely panned. They were kind of a laughing stock, and it was then that their relationship started to go sour as well.
Yeah, because look, like Bennifer, obviously a sad end, obviously a quote unquote flop from that perspective. But like they both went on, they both had very successful, some not so successful relationships with other people, but like they went on, they did with other people, they had success in their own ways. With regards to Jen, she was very, like bankable as an actress. People went out to see her, people went out to buy the music. Like she was very, very successful kind of in her own right, even post, Bennifer, when it seemed like, all was lost.
Oh, totally. She's always been a very hard worker. And that's one thing that I've always admired about her. She seems to be a grafter. And I know there was obviously the diva rumors and that I'm sure she is a diva because, she's a hard-working woman and probably knows exactly what she wants and isn't afraid to say it. So, she's a diva. But she's always been banging away at the music and has never been afraid to take risks and lash out another album, and it mightn't perform as well as, Taylor Swift's albums would perform, but she's always out there working, whether it's music, movies, and then obviously business. She has her beauty range, her perfumes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, she's always had an amazing career. Whether it's been criticized or not, I think she has always been dogged by the insults of, you're not a very strong singer. Yeah, you look great and you can dance, but you can't really sing. But for me, I think she actually brings it all. She looks the part. She has a great stage presence, and that's a lot of it. It's kind of like the Madonna vibe. Isn't the strongest singer ever, but can really entertain a crowd. I think JLo has always been able to entertain a crowd.
Like, she is someone I'd love to see on tour. You know what I mean? And it's difficult, but I think it is just because when she came up, you're talking about competing with the likes of, when you're talking about being vocally the best there, she isn't. And that's not a slight, but it's just when you're talking about the naughties and in those specific genres, she's competing with people like the likes of Mariah and like the Celines and the Whitneys and all that. And they're obviously power as vocalists, which JLo is not. But JLo could dance. And I suppose you mentioned the diva thing. She had that kind of, like, as much as it kind of worked against her, it also kind of worked with her that she was a bit of a like, she had the beef with Mariah and like, could she be a bit of an asshole backstage? Like, but it all played in this persona that made her like, and still makes her this really fascinating celebrity. But I totally agree as well that I think it's her like work ethos as well. That's kind of, it's you like, and that's not to say it about the rest of the women. I don't want to get into that conversation because that's not the point I'm trying to make. But she's had, like she's not like, it's always been Jenny from the block. And I think that while that maybe stood to her initially, I feel like it's kind of worked against her as her career has gone on, maybe. What do you think?
I completely agree because I think that people love to take someone down who is, has ideas about themselves or has notions about themselves. And I think there's a kind of a smugness to this whole thing that has gone on, in the last few weeks. She's kind of had a fall from grace. Professionally, this is probably one of the worst times of her life. And I'd say personally, probably not great either. And I think people are kind of secretly happy for that to be going on, which is horrible. I think she's always had a point to prove. And I think that actually is the crux of it all, is that she's always wanted to prove the naysayers wrong. I can do this. I can do these ambitious projects. I'm an amazing entertainer. And I think that has probably been her fatal flaw, in that she has always gone above and beyond to try and shut those criticisms down, and potentially this time she just bit off more than she could chew, really.
Yeah, because even before we get to current day, like the 2010s, she has this kind of second wind with the EDM boom, like huge hits with like Pitbull, and she is like a charting musician again and is doing extremely well, has found this kind of new audience, like personally stronger than ever. I think at this point, I think she was or she was either just separated from Mark Anthony or that was about to happen and just started going out with Alex Rodriguez. A-Rod seemed stronger than ever, was still doing kind of the rom-com thing, but was also moving into more quote unquote maybe serious projects. Like I remember the conversation around Hustlers, like it really seemed like that was going to be a moment for her to quote unquote legitimize her as an actress, because
completely.
This is another conversation we could have about how, people not taking rom-com seriously and stuff like this. But like Hustlers, it seemed like, okay, she is taking on this kind of gritty, darker role. She's playing a stripper, like a strip club mother, but actually a criminal and stuff like this. And just for the record, I am fully team Jennifer Lopez should have been nominated for an Oscar for Hustlers. Should she have won it? I'm not sure. But like that seemed to be... It seemed to be a kind of peak for her, but also kind of nearly a flop again, because she dared to show that she was disappointed at the fact that she didn't get nominated.
Yes, yeah. And I watched, I don't know if you've seen Halftime, it's the Netflix documentary, and it's, it's a brilliant watch. If you're familiar with her, it's great, but if you're not, it gives an insight into kind of the inner workings, and it brings you through the Oscar trail, the campaign, all the award ceremonies, and there's so much hype around it. And she's actually, as you said, allowing herself to get excited that this finally might be the moment that she gets validation from the industry. She's always been told she's a good actress and a good singer, but maybe this is the moment that she gets that bit of justice and gets her nod. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen for her. And like you said, you can see the visible disappointment. She's gutted, and she probably knows that's probably it for maybe another 20 years, if ever she gets that chance again, because it was the crest. She was riding on the crest of a wave, and it was one of her peaks, and she may not ever see it again. I don't know, but I think it was awful to watch her to kind of get carried away with, as you would, because if everyone's telling you you're a dead cert, you're going to get this is happening, you're making all the lists, you're making the short lists of the people that or the predictions and all that, and then it doesn't happen. And I think that was possibly the start of the end again, the start of the decline.
What did you make of kind of that documentary overall, though? And I suppose the halftime show in general, it was obviously one she shared with Shakira, which I know people, me included, I found that kind of frustrating. I think either women could have done it, each of them themselves, which is frustrating in its own right. But how do you think she came across even outside of the Hustlers moment?
In the documentary, I suppose she's not afraid to be herself on camera, which I appreciate. So obviously, we see lots of music documentaries, and they're heavily produced, and we don't possibly get the full behind-the-scenes treatment. But I felt that we did see her in her natural habitat, being quite bossy, being quite, sometimes rude to people when she wasn't happy about something. I liked seeing that. And it gave me a sense of, okay, yeah, she is going to get flack for this, no doubt, but she is strong. She knows her mind, whether her mind is right or wrong, but isn't afraid to speak up. And I really enjoyed that documentary. And I was only telling someone about it recently. I'm a sucker for any kind of music documentary. I'm suddenly like, I'm this person's biggest fan after watching any kind of documentary. And maybe I'm a gullible viewer that I'm fully on board, and I go, yeah, she's amazing. Oh my God, I love her. But I think, I really get carried away. But I admire her and I admired her after watching Halftime because of the sheer determination, the sheer hours that she puts into her performance. And yeah, as you mentioned, the frustration about her and Shakira having to, divide the time, whatever, 7 minutes each, whatever it was. Um, I can imagine it was very frustrating for an artist of her caliber or her size, But I thought it was a great insight into her working process and how she does things and how she deals with people and how she probably got her reputation.
Mm. And then there's Ben. Then there's Ben again.
Oh man.
So
Oh
Ben
wow.
agreed with me. Ben agreed with me in 2020. He said, because obviously, like they split up. They're in their own other respective relationships. J-Lo, as I mentioned, is married to Mark Anthony until 2014, and then dates Alex Rodriguez a little bit after that. But in 2020, like they're publicly very supportive of each other, even separately. And after the dust has settled, like Ben said that she should have been nominated for an Oscar for her role in Hustlers. She said she should have been nominated. She's the real thing. I keep in touch periodically with her, and I have a lot of respect for her. How awesome is that she had her biggest hit movie at 50? That's fucking baller, right? So
Oh
then that's kind of like, that's nice. That's a nice thing
yeah.
to say. And then it's April 2021. We have, and I wonder how much the pandemic played into this, and I'd like to get your insight on it. But
Mm.
they're seen together, they're seen dating. People go fucking nuts. I remember as someone who I did grow up in Bennifer 1.0, but I didn't buy into it as much as I did then because I didn't really get celebrity culture. This is like catnip to me. As someone who watches
Oh
Love Island, as someone who's not cynical about romance at all, or celebrities, to be honest, I was like, this is it. And also someone who's like really supportive of Ben Affleck for some reason. I don't know. Don't ask me to
yeah.
explain that by
Listen,
myself.
I hear you. Yeah.
I know you get me. I know you get me.
Yeah.
We see them come back together and it's a Bennifer 2.0. What was your initial reaction? I suppose, what did you think the public's reaction was? Because from my perspective, it seemed really positive. It seemed like kind of disbelieving, but also like really happy and supportive of them.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I was on maternity leave when this all came to play, right? So I was just after giving birth to Finn. And when I say I
Shout out
was
Finn.
Finn forever, I was absolutely sickened that I wasn't on the radio on doing my showbiz reports to talk about this because to me this is one of the biggest showbiz stories of the last 20 years. Like
Yeah.
it plays out like a movie. You have this couple, they are in love, they can't be together for various reasons, they go their separate ways, they find each other again. And it's honestly, it is box office stuff. And when I saw those pictures of them together, I couldn't quite believe it because it had been less than a month since she'd broken up with A-Rod, who, I'm going to be honest with you, I was never a fan of A-Rod. And so I was glad that all was finished. And when I saw her with Ben, I said, this is it. We have done it. It's back on. I couldn't believe it. And I think that lots of people shared the same as you and I shared that, it was unbelievably romantic to think that they had come back, they had found each other, they'd matured. And no disrespect to their previous partners, but that they had, the timing was right this time for them. And I got completely swept away with it and was absolutely delighted with it. And I think the public were too, because let's be honest, the public do love a love story. And it was a love story. And I don't know where we stand now with Bennifer 2.0 and what's happening there, but I would be very sad if it's the end of Bennifer.
Yeah, because this is the thing. And I think it was the way she kind of went about it as well. Because as I said, like, she's a very fascinating celebrity. She's very public. Like, the relationship with Alex Rodriguez was very public.
Mm-hmm.
The end of that relationship was very public. I don't think she wanted to be that public necessarily, obviously, because Alex Rodriguez allegedly cheated with a Bravo celebrity whose name is escaping me now, Madison LaCroix. There we go,
Yes.
from Southern Charm. And that all kind of blew up and it was very public. And I think J-Lo did not want it to be like that. So then you have her and Ben, they're kind of chatting again, according to reports. They're Instagram official. It's very like kind of teenage, like doing the hard launch in a carousel of images. They're out supporting each other because at this time, Ben is out promoting The Last Duel. They're doing all the red carpets together. And then comes Jennifer Lopez's film in 2022, which you actually think might be the start of maybe this current flop era we're in, the film Marry Me. Can you talk to me a little bit about that film and why you maybe that was the start of another trough for J-Lo?
Because it was absolute dirt. That's why.
Shauna, don't say that. Film of the century. How dare you? How dare you?
I sat down to watch that with an open mind, and I just remember thinking, oh, Jesus, this is so bad. I can't even enjoy this as a it's so bad, it's good kind of a thing. I found it just absolutely crap. And I was disappointed. And like, again, there had been so much press around it. And it was obviously very high budget and no expense spared in any of the the set or, any of it. But I just felt this is crap. And here we go. We're back into the turkey era. Again, it was, I don't think I even finished it, which is very unusual for me. I think I turned it off going, this is rubbish. So that might have been the beginning of the end, to be honest with you, or the beginning of this current flop. Yeah.
Yeah, because look, like the critics absolutely fucking hated it. I think it did make money. I'm not sure how, I don't think it was a total box office bomb because I think she was able to capitalize off the fact that, she's in a film called Marry Me.
Yeah.
With the greatest respect to her, and I'm actually, this is just a fact, she's been married several times. The conceit of the film is she is getting married to this other famous singer and then he ditches her. But she still has to go along with the fact she's getting married. So she decides to pretend to get married to someone fake in the audience at one of her concerts. But then they actually fall in love. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. This is all coming back to me now. Flashbacks of... yes, you're right. Yes.
Flashbacks of poor Owen Wilson being coerced into marriage.
Oh, J-Lo.
Oh. Yeah. But obviously, yeah, she's able to kind of but boy, off the strength of that. Ben Affleck is at everything. And it get I wonder if it was a thing of as well, Ben Affleck's become a meme in itself in that, he's constantly smoking, he's constantly carrying lots of coffees and donuts and standing around kind of looking a bit allergic to everything and maybe slightly depressed. And then you have Angel J-Lo who will turn up to the opening of an envelope and they're just kind of these chalk and cheese kind of characters. And it was so kind of heartwarming to see this, quote unquote, movie, I'm an actor, I'm a director, capital D guy, and he's turning up to the bloody Marry Me premiere and he is delighted.
He's
couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
He loves his missus. I think that's why we bought in, I think.
Yes, for sure, because for the guy who has, the ultimate resting bitch face, for him to be actually saying, listen, that's just the way my face falls. I'm actually very happy here. This is amazing. And because obviously there's been so many moments captured where, he's slamming the door on her, or it appears, or he's going, Jesus Christ, as she's, getting out of the car or whatever. I think that's all just been, it was all unfortunate timing or whatever. He's probably just is a grumpy guy. But for him to, as you said, be there by her side and go, no, I'm actually really happy here. This is, I was just shocked that Ben Affleck is the kind of guy, I wouldn't have ever put him as a super romantic guy. And then it's obviously come out afterwards that, he kept all their emails and he, collated them all and gave her this book of the greatest love story never told. So he obviously is super romantic and was completely swept away by this love, which came to them unexpectedly by the sounds of it,
Shauna, when I heard about the book and the letters, never have I been more vindicated about the fact that I have been standing, but I've been in the trenches for Ben Affleck, and for that man to come out and be I kept every letter. I'm obsessed with you. Sorry,
it was
divine.
It was so romantic, so romantic. Yeah. Now then, obviously, for her to open that to the public, I don't know how comfortable he would be about that or was about that, but the fact that it existed in the first place, fabulous.
Yeah, divine. So they get engaged, and again it's they get engaged and she announces it in the most iconic way possible in her on the J-Lo newsletter, iconic. Even that kind of seemed I don't know, they've kind of learned the lessons of the past, and like they're kind of doing a fuck you to the media, because they could have very easily gone to like the Vogues or whatever, and obviously it's done a deal, like, you know, 3-page spread, whatever. They probably would have gotten more than 3 pages. Poor, I'm doing Bennifer a disservice. But, you know, it was like on their terms, like wanted to speak like very directly to the fans. They're engaged in April. It seems like they're married in July. But again, it's really low key the way she shares everything. And I know, again, it's to like, I'm not stupid. I know it's to further her own brand. And like, obviously it gets more subscribers to her own newsletter or whatever, and people are more aware of her, whatever. But, you know, like, they get married in Las Vegas, best night ever. Couple's children were the best witnesses. Like, it's very low key, and it kind of seems like not J-Lo. So I feel like that kind of endears the public again, because it was not the diva J-Lo or the spectacle that maybe people were expecting. So like they get married in Las Vegas. There's another celebration then in Georgia with like more, obviously Matt Damon's there, with Kevin Smith there, like all the celebs are there, but again, so they're on honeymoon. It's all good. It's all kind of grand. And then it's kind of like the heat dies down or something. I don't know. She takes his last name, but they're kind of seen at a few things. I think it might have been the Grammys 2023. It was some award ceremony, and they're there together. But as you said, Ben sometimes just has a grumpy head on him. Maybe he's just a grumpy person.
God bless him.
He's kind of photographed at that, like not looking great. And it seems like, people are kind of reading into the lines that like J-Lo's kind of in his ear to be like, would you smile or whatever? Like people are speculating about what they're talking about, whatever. And I'm wondering if that was what was it? Was it oversaturation with them? Were we over the love story? Like, I don't, because this is even before the documentary and the 3-parter, which we'll get into. But like, what do you think it was? Is it oversaturation? Is it?
I don't know. I think, to be fair, I think when there's so much photographic evidence of him looking thick that, you can't help but wonder, is there a problem there? Are they as loved up as they're telling us they are? Like, to be fair, the material is, as you would have just said, catnip for journalists. Like, all this, the videos of him looking so angry, they look like they're having rows all the time in public, and it's all quite public. Like, it's when they're walking from the car to a venue, or when they are spotted out and about and he looks like he's giving out yards. So the fact that that's all out there so publicly, I don't think we're used to seeing as much of that in the press. As in, we obviously hear rumors of, trouble in paradise with X couple, and, so-and-so has moved out of the marital home, whatever, X couple, Y couple. But we see a lot of the rows, I say in inverted commas, rows that J-Lo and Ben were having, because there's so much speculation around it. And I'd say it probably just seeped into everyone's minds that maybe this wasn't working, and maybe he is, sick of all the media speculation, because he's been very open in the past about not enjoying that side of a high profile relationship. And so I think that's possibly when it just started to turn, when we saw so much of him seemingly pissed off, frustrated, tired of it all, so I think when you see it there, you go, okay, well, maybe there is a problem.
Then we have the documentary, the album, and the feature film. So this is this like this it's so bizarre. This trilogy, which is like, the album is touted as a sequel to This Is Me Then, and it's called This Is Me Now, which I will say, like, a good idea. The question is, did fans actually, were fans like clamoring for the because she'd been so public about their love story, like, were fans clamoring for the musical description of them, coming back to each other? I'm not so sure, but we'll talk about it. There's this album. There's a documentary that goes along with it that's called This Is Me Now, A Love Story, which is the making of the album. And then there's this film that's like a fictional kind of telling of like, it's kind of autobiographical about J-Lo's life, and like how she's her, it's so hard to even describe this for
No,
anyone who
it
hasn't watched it. But
really
like,
is. It's so
it's
hard. Yeah.
her, it's her trying to put forward that like she's essentially kind of addicted to being in love and loves being in love, but like is obviously unlucky in love and is like kind of trying to acknowledge, you know, the fact that she's been married lots of times but it's this very weird, like nonsensical, because obviously the music from the album is in it. There's lots of famous people in it. There were a lot of famous people who said no.
Yeah.
Talk to the listener, but can you do a better job describing that the
Do
fake
you know
movie?
what?
Because I'm not sure I can. Bar the
No.
Heart Factory. She works in a heart factory.
Listen, I tried to condense this earlier on for myself to try and get, make sense of it for myself. And Fionnuala, it's a maze. It's a maze of a project. I'm like, this is me now. This is me then. This is me. The greatest love story never told or ever told. I'm not sure. So, yeah, the movie, the album, right? So she said she was very inspired after getting back with Ben, and she felt she felt very creatively charged, and it made her want to get back into the studio. As you said, was the demand there? Probably not. But in theory, would I have enjoyed listening to, some music about them getting back together? Yeah, because I love a love story, and yeah, I love the idea of it. But the reality was that the music was kind of pants as well, and that I think was the first flaw here, that the music wasn't very strong. So, I think that was the initial problem. Then you have her wanting to make this really high budget, really high standard of musical movie, and I mean, having watched the documentary of of the making of that, first of all, the funders pull out, right? So that's red flag one. You are now funding this yourself, and we know from the past, generally when celebrities are funding something themselves, I'm talking Waterworld by Kevin Costner, Blackbird by Michael Flatley. When you're funding it yourself, it doesn't bode well generally.
No.
Because it's something you really want to get out there, but if someone is not willing to pay for it, that's telling you something. And the third little red flag was, as you mentioned, all the celebrities turning her down. So she had gone to a number of high profile celebrities looking for them to do cameos. Taylor Swift was asked, Khloe Kardashian, Vanessa Hudgens, Jason Momoa, Lizzo, Snoop Dogg. These all turned down cameos for various reasons, scheduling, whatever. And, you can see her getting quite frustrated with that in the documentary. She just doesn't understand why people aren't getting on board with this project. That's going to be so great. And in the end, one of the people who talks a bit of sense to her is Jane Fonda, who she will have starred with in Monster-in-Law and had quite a good relationship with her. And when she approached Jane Fonda about being in it, Jane says, and I have the quote here, I'm just going to grab it right now because it's lovely. She says, "I want you to know that I don't entirely know why, but I feel invested in you and Ben, and I really want this to work. However, this is absurd. It feels too much like you're trying to prove something instead of just living it. Every other photograph is of you kissing and hugging. And basically you're trying too hard to show that you are so in love." And Jennifer, responded to Jane Fonda and said, "That's just us living our life." So, there's Jane Fonda saying, this is crazy. This is a crazy project, but she's powering through anyway. She wants to get this made. So, massive effort, massive budget. I think 20 million she put into it herself.
20 million of her own money without even
own money.
And like Amazon did take it in the end, so I'm sure she made her money back and then some. But like, it's wild. But it's why I kind of love her as a celebrity, because like, who else is doing this? Who else is having a documentary where it's like, as you said, like a lot of music, celebrity, whatever documentaries right now are so overly produced, or like they're all executive produced by the celebrity themselves, which I get, but like that's a form of image protection. You have J-Lo here being like, "Oh my God, Taylor Swift won't answer the phone to me. Why won't she answer the phone to me to be my crazy fucking movie?" I'm like, yeah, why won't she, girl? That's crazy. That's crazy. You're crazy. I love you.
Yeah. And again, watching that, I said, okay, yeah, this is mental and it's probably going to be a flop. but you have to respect she really believes in something and she really wants to get it out there. And, I think again, it ultimately comes down to her wanting to prove herself, wanting people to respect her as an artist, as a singer, as an actress. I think she just craves that seal of approval. And unfortunately, this project did not get that. It wasn't the result she was hoping for. So you have then this, I didn't actually watch the movie musical, if I'm completely honest with you. I watched the documentary of the making of it, and I was like, do you know what now? That's not for me. And I will sit through a lot of.
Shauna, you don't ever need to you don't ever need to watch it. It's Kim Petras is there. Fat Joe is her therapist for some reason. Like it's just,
Yes.
it's bizarre.
Oh Christ! And when I watched the documentary, I said to myself, this is going to be a disaster and she's going to get so much flack for this. And unfortunately, that has happened. I just feel sorry for her personally. I know, feel sorry for someone who's, multi-millionaire or whatever, but I do. I feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for the way the media have turned on her, the way people have turned on her. She was just trying something new. But I do feel she's resilient and she will bounce back with some other treat us to some other amazing spectacle in the next 5 years.
But that's what I was about to ask. Like, if we are to take, like, playing devil's advocate or whatever the opposite of that is, like, if we are to take this from the perspective of we are sympathetic of her, and it like, because obviously I've talked about this on the podcast before, like, the album flopped. The album did not do well in the States. The movie was like wildly, like, and the thing with the movie is I do think it'll have a kind of, it's going to become camp in like 10 or 20 years in the way that like Glitter did and is, but like as of right now, like 100% not. And then the documentary, again, while you did have people like praising it for being so open, when you pair it with the other two projects, it's just like, it's delusional. But then also, is it just the same cycle perpetuating again? When we look at Bennifer 1.0 and the first iteration of their relationship and how awful the media treated them and the scrutiny, is it just happening again? And like, obviously there's an argument where it's like, well, they wouldn't have to be so public with their relationship. I mean, fair, but also like Jennifer Lopez is one of the most famous people in the world, as is Ben Affleck. I'm sure there's an element of, could they be less public? Yes, but like they'd still be getting papped. And as you said, they're getting papped in moments when, as you said, maybe they're not rowing, but like they're having like normal coupley, like where you're not all over each other. You're not, and like we don't have to deal with any of that because we live in houses and we close our doors and no one cares about us, respectfully. Well, I'm sure lots of people care about you, Shauna, but not in their respect.
Oh, like, listen,
paparazzi,
people are actually outside my house as we speak right now because a camera zooming in at me right now.
But like, is it like that's like, I'm kind of like, is it her from that perspective? I'm like, maybe it's not her fault,
Oh, totally. I think the downfall of the relationship in particular, whatever is going on, it definitely the media has a huge part to play in it. And I've read so many horrible headlines about Ben Affleck saying it was a moment of insanity. How did he ever think that this was going to work? Which is a horrible story to be out there. But I was only watching a clip on TikTok the other day of them sitting in a car and having a fairly normal looking conversation, but somebody has been, they've had a lip reader try to figure out what they're saying. Yeah. And it actually feels so invasive. And listen, I am a showbiz reporter. I love showbiz gossip, but there's some things that you feel is just a step too far. And for me, watching that video of them having like a conversation in the car, which feels like it's about something to do with their family and telling their family what's going on, it felt just a step too far. And I wouldn't blame them for going, we just can't do this, can't live like this. And maybe it's better for us to be apart, which is really, really sad. But yeah, I think that's what is going on. And when you mentioned it earlier on, when you said that, Bennifer, the first iteration of Bennifer was ultimately dragged down by the press. I said, here we are again, 22 years later, we haven't learned anything from, from anything. It's obviously a much bigger conversation. But, here we are again, dragging this poor couple to the press again.
Because it would, like, the heat of all the doc stuff and the movie stuff, like, it did die down. You were hearing reports then about the tour that was, I think it had an original name of, I think it was like, I don't know, this is me now. And then obviously
Yes.
just in support of the album. And then nobody was buying tickets for that. So they changed the name of the tour to be
Yes.
like, oh, this is me, the greatest hits, whatever, to try and bump ticket sales.
Mm-hmm.
Because the tour was
Yeah.
supposed to be this summer. Didn't end up happening. And this is kind of then amidst this further tabloid chatter about her and Ben, because like there wasn't really a lot of speculation around the tour, the promotional cycle for this documentary and this film, like, because he was very supportive. He obviously features in the documentary. And again, you're kind of seeing warts and all their relationship. You mentioned that scene where when she's trying to write this new album, they're going through this book of letters and everything that he'd kept, like from J-Lo, and like between the time they were not together and when they got back together, like this really romantic book. And J-Lo's like rifling through it for material for the album, as well as her creative team. And he and it's titled like The Greatest Love Story Never Told. And he comes in and is like, this kind of defeats the purpose of the title of the book, but like, whatever. We see all that, and it's still like, I don't even think at that point anyone was like, oh my God, Trouble in Paradise.
No.
You have this tour, the tour's kind of flopping. Then you have this intense media scrutiny of like, oh my God, they haven't been photographed together in like 47 days. And obviously that seems like a lot when they're photographed together like every 2.5 seconds. They've since been seen together since they attended his daughter Violet's graduation together, and there have been a couple of pap things. But then, as I mentioned, why I needed to get you in quickly, the tour that This Is Me Live, I should say, the This Is Me Live tour that was taking place in North America, I'm pretty sure, was cancelled. Jennifer is taking time off to be with her children, family, and close friends. The 54-year-old performer said she was completely heartsick and devastated. Please know that I wouldn't do this if I didn't feel that it was absolutely necessary. It was supposed to be a 2-month tour set to kick off in Orlando on June 26th. Show scheduled across the United States and Canada. Like, this is supposed to be her first tour in 5 years.
Yeah.
There should have been excitement there. Like, as I said earlier on in this episode, I would go see J-Lo live. I would pay probably
absolutely
€80 to see J-Lo live. And I'd say she put on a whopper show. What happened? Was it her and Ben? Was it the album and the tour, and then not the tour, album and the doc and the movie? Was it a bit of both? Are we just sick of her? What is it? Why is she in this flop era now?
Okay, so I was trying to pin this down earlier on, what has happened. And first of all, there's an argument that, the saturation, have we reached saturation point with J-Lo? The argument is kind of invalid, because you look at the artists like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, who are, in every paper, in every magazine, on every outlet, social media, touring. There's no issue with saturation there. I don't know if that's the reason. I think it might be a mixture of a couple of things. One, I believe album or tour sales across the board haven't been amazing. And I read today that the Black Keys had also cancelled a tour, but obviously I know the Black Keys are not on the scale of J-Lo, but they had quite a big stadium tour booked for America, and they had to cancel because of poor ticket sales. So the environment maybe isn't the most welcoming at the moment for tour. I don't know. Do people love to see her get her comeuppance, as I mentioned earlier on? I think there's a little element of that, which is people taking pleasure in the fact that this is not really working and then really jumping on it. Was it too ambitious? Probably. Were the venues too big? Probably. Could they have downsized slightly to save face? I was trying to think about this earlier on.
Well, that's the whole thing with the Black Keys, is it? And like, I appreciate your point. Obviously, they're very different artists, but like, I think it speaks to like a lot of artists are struggling with the the touring scenario at the minute and kind of wanting to do these bigger venues, but tickets being so expensive and people not wanting to pay the money. But the thing with JLo is I don't think she would have wanted to downsize. Is like, because,
No.
and I'm kind of like, why should you? You're JLo. Like, I get it. Even if the last album flopped, I don't care. Of course, I think I should be seeing you in the Three Arena or whatever the American equivalent is, you know?
Yeah, I suppose you're right. JLo doesn't really work in a, you know, in a pared back intimate setting. She has to be, you know, as you said earlier on, she's box office, she's big business. So, you know, you need pyro, you need lights, you need a stage, I suppose. Yeah. Listen, it's a mystery to me what has gone on here, because it feels just crazy that someone can be riding on the crest of a wave, doing really well, media darling, everybody's delighted, suddenly Guthoban ripped off her pedestal and down, and you are absolutely going to be ridiculed now for this, you know, for all these various things that have gone wrong, and we're really just going to hone in on you and just give you so much shit for it, basically. I just think it's horrible.
Do you think it is also the issue, though, that the thing we talked about at the start, like the hard work ethic, the grind, the Jenny from the block kind of, you know, the story doesn't work anymore because, as you mentioned, she is a multimillionaire, possibly a billionaire. I mean, who knows? Like, especially when you saw a lot of she was heavy on the promo cycle for the documentary and the movie and the album. And, you know, she's doing the Vogue 73 questions. And this has come up again recently because in that, I think she was asked about what her bodega order was. And she talked about like the sandwich, and she talked about this orange drink that she got. And it was kind of like, if you know, you know. And that went viral. But again, it was kind of seemed like it went viral because people were taking the piss out of her, because it was like, yes, you came from there, but you're so far from there now.
Yeah.
And then there also was the thing of the clip from the documentary where she's in the gym and she's been working out and her hair's kind of crazy, and she's like, reminds me of what my hair was like in the Bronx. That she was ripped over that. And then even more recently, she's on the promo trail for this new movie Atlas on Netflix, which by all accounts dog shit, but everyone seems to be watching. Again, I don't know if I believe streaming numbers.
It's a commercial success.
Yeah, but she's mentioning she's with Sterling K. Brown and they're doing like an interview junket, and she's like, oh, back in the Bronx, whatever. She mentions the Bronx or whatever, and or she mentions being Puerto Rican, and Sterling K. Brown's like, "You're Puerto Rican? Get out here!" Obviously taking the piss out of her and being sarcastic, and she's kind of snapping back, like fully takes the bait at him to be like, "Yeah, I am," but she's getting the piss ripped out of her again. Like, is it that? Is it just that we're kind of like, we can't buy the working class J-Lo shtick anymore? Like, we'd nearly respect you more if you were just like deluded, you know, be your deluded
like,
millionaire self. We don't care. Like, we know, we get it.
Go full Mariah Carey, I suppose.
Yeah,
really, like.
maybe.
Yeah, probably because she, you know, she doesn't do herself favors in that regard, because she does hark back so much, you know, in her both her work, her music, any kind of press she does. She does love to talk about how normal she is, and let's be honest, she's not normal. She's not like the rest of us. She's living on a different plane. So yeah, maybe there is a sense of, well, we'll show you now, Jenny from the block. We'll show you who's boss, and you can, you know, I don't know. I just don't know, Fionnuala. I don't know.
Well, I need to ask if you know what she can do to get out of this flop era. Like what? Because I think she will. I don't know when. And like, I don't really want to get into or like be too speculative around the relationship with her and Ben, because I know we've literally just done a whole podcast on it. But at the same time, like, I find it, there's a part of me that like doesn't buy into they're on the rocks, like rumors. I just think it's like, whatever. He's doing the accountant too. Like, they're both busy. Whatever.
Oh, do you think that this is fabricated?
I don't know if it's fabricated, but I don't think they're as on the brink as the media wants you to believe.
Right.
I think media are taking this opportunity because she is on a downswing, like career-wise. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like, I'm sorry, for my own mental health, I'm like, they cannot split up. Like, if they split up, I will be.
Oh man, I'll be.
Parasocial relationships are bad, but I will be devastated.
Yeah, no, totally.
What does she need to do? I know I just mentioned she's in that Atlas movie. Again, as I said, not really being reviewed very well, but if you're to believe streaming figures, it's streaming very well. So like, she is still booked and busy in that regard. Like, I'm sure she'll keep getting jobs. I'm sure she'll take a crack at the music and the tour at some other point. I think she needs another kind of hustler's role. Will she get that?
Yes.
I'm not really sure. What is the shovel that she needs to dig herself out of the flap trenches?
Okay. I think first of all, she needs to park the music. Okay. We've seen your music. It's good. Stick, the hits are there. They're not going away, but park it with the new music now. Okay. So I just think not, that's not her strength. Okay. Uh, I think a really high quality rom-com would do the job for her, and not a shit one. I mean a
Okay.
proper good rom-com. Obviously the rom-com is having a moment, and
Yeah.
we've seen is it what's the Sydney Sweeney one? Anyone But You? Is that the one?
Anyone But You.
Yeah.
Hitman is coming very soon to
Yes.
Netflix with Glenn Powell. That's another rom-com.
Yeah. I think if she was able to get a really good script and a decent rom-com could save her. I also think you're dead right. If she was able to have a kind of a grittier, because she is a really good actress. I truly believe she is a good actress. So I
Same.
think she needs to focus on the acting and leave the music, and potentially just withdraw a bit from the spotlight a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here, but I don't want her to lose her spirit. Okay, I don't want her to lose her J-Lo. Okay, I want her to. She's a resilient woman. She's from the Bronx, Fionnuala. She's resilient. So I think she will probably dust herself down, and maybe an old documentary again, because they're good. They are good. If she knocks out a documentary and we get the insight into what's going on behind the scenes, and we can identify with her plight and her struggles and whatever's going on, maybe that would help humanize her a bit more again. I don't know.
See, I would have said the documentary previously as well, but like J-Lo's issue then again is that we've seen kind of like too much of her. Do you know what I mean? In the
Yes,
sense of like, we had the halftime documentary, and I know that's more respective to her career or whatever, but then obviously that This Is Me Now, like, I just feel like, I don't know. And it's a real shame because, as I said, like, This Is Me Now was more truthful than probably any music documentary released in the last 5 years. But
yes,
she kind of fell on her own sword by being as truthful as she was. And I do just wonder, even to go back to like why she's kind of flapping out at the minute. And if we're to kind of pick the documentary as like the real torpedo that's kind of sinking everything, was it just that maybe to play devil's advocate, maybe it wasn't as truthful as she kind of thought it was? Like, does it go back to that point of Jane Fonda being like, it seems like you're trying to prove this point,
yeah,
and I don't know what point you're trying to prove. Like, what, like, I think this whole thing with JLo was like, oh, I need people to see, like, that this is why my public person life has been the way it is. And people
yes.
honestly being like, no, like, we never thought this about you. And I don't know why you're telling us now and wanting us to get on board with this belief you have about yourself about being like a love addict and stuff like
Yeah.
this.
Again, I think it comes back to the chip on her shoulder. For being, obviously she's been ridiculed over the years for her various love interests, and how she has just seemed to be unlucky in love. And I think that has been a chip on her shoulder. And I think more than anybody, she wanted this to be the love story, the full stop at the end of her story. And I think, yeah, she wanted everyone to know this is the real deal. Okay, I know there's been, this guy, Chris Judd, A-Rod, whoever, but this is it. And you can stop taking the piss out of me now, basically. And I'm a serious woman in love. I'm a mature woman in love with this man. And can you all just accept it and leave me be and leave me be happy? I feel that that's what she wanted to. She wanted to kind of get the validation of people who criticized her professionally, and get the validation of people who criticized her personally. But has it worked? No, not really.
Look, JLo, if you're listening, we absolutely only want the best for you. I cannot say this enough, and we want you to stay strong. I think I can
Oh,
speak for both of us on that, Shauna.
yeah, you do. I really am. As you have heard, I am a big fan of hers. I buy it all. I'm a gullible woman. I buy it all. I'm totally invested, and I hope that this is just one more little trough, and we see a peak very quickly again.
Well, I can't wait for it. And we'll have you back to talk about it, no doubt. Shauna, it's been such a pleasure. I will bring you back for the JLo Bop era and whatever music documentary comes out next. But in the meantime, where can people hear more from you and find you?
Well, I'm on the Ian Dempsey Breakfast Show on Today FM every morning, doing a showbiz report. So you'll find me there, or I'm on Instagram, Shauna O'Reilly 86.
Shauna, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
Thank you, Fionnuala. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Shauna. I will leave all of her links below. If anyone has any scripts that are Hustlers-esque that we can get to JLo's desk, let me know. helloflopculture@gmail.com. I'll get them to her. I'll find a way. Don't you worry. I should also state one thing we did forget to mention was in the midst of all this promo cycle as well for the album, documentary, film, she was on SNL. She was the musical guest and she was on alongside Io Debris, Queen of My Heart, Star of the Bear. Io was hosting and that seemed to be like a moment where even, I don't know, maybe that should have been the moment where we realised that JLo couldn't claw the publicity back. So for anyone that's unfamiliar, this week comes up for SNL and it's all very exciting or whatever. And someone digs up this podcast that Io did back in 2020, I think it was, in which she refers to JLo's career as a I don't know, a big long scam, essentially. This scam is the word she uses, like a years long scam. And it's not like very mean or derogatory towards JLo specifically, but like, and it's all said comedically, tongue in cheek, but it's very much like Io's position at that time, it could have changed since, is that she doesn't take JLo's career seriously and that essentially that JLo doesn't deserve her career. So this comes out the week of, this was before SNL happened. So obviously you'd imagine like it's very awkward, whatever. Io doesn't say anything. They all kind of get on with it. She's hinted at it since and is kind of seems to be laughing about it now. But at the time, there were reports that Io was devastated, as you would imagine. SNL debut, this is now overshadowing it, unfortunately. It seemed even at the time, because there were reports then that like JLo's people came out and, you know, they're giving the reports to media outlets that Io came and was very apologetic and was very upset. And like, it seemed to be painting it that JLo was being very gracious in her acceptance of this. And even in that, even though it seemed like the reports were coming from JLo's camp, none of it even seemed to be painting it or painting JLo in a sympathetic light. And you even had people coming out to defend Io being like, a lot of these people were probably JLo haters. They're coming out and saying, no, Io's right. JLo's career is a scam. She's not a good singer, which, whatever. Again, as we discussed in that conversation, vocally, we could argue till the cows come home about how good she is in comparison to XYZ, but like the figures don't lie. Commercially, she is an unbelievably viable musician. And even if we're to take the numbers out of it, like, I dare you not get on a dance floor when Get Right comes on. You'll be there. Don't tell me lies. Don't tell me lies. I know you'll be there and I'll be there too and we'll be having a great time. Anyway, I really think that was the point where it just seemed, and it was weird because again, it's not like JLo didn't come out publicly and JLo kind of maybe would have been in her right to be like, fuck you or something, I don't know, or even to have been like quote unquote shady online. And she didn't. She did it all like through the media. But then is it just that that's all really transparent now? Or are we all too savvy to the way celebrity media and PR works that it fell flat? I don't know. What do you think? Please let me know if you have any strong opinions on where JLo goes next or how we got here. Maybe it was something that we missed. The devil's in the details. It's been a long 2 years, if you can believe that. 3 years since her and Ben got back together. It's been a lot. Anyway, moving on to Top of the Flops.
You're a flop.
Top of the flops this week is Eminem, because that man is a 50-year-old loser. Why? He's back. He's a new song. It's called Houdini. First of all, will we let Dua Lipa have things? I think we should, okay? He comes out and it seems to be, obviously because the song is called Houdini, it's like, this seems to, I don't know, is he hinting at like this being his like final hurrah as a rapper, that this being his like quote unquote victory lap, which for it to be a victory lap, can you be having a victory lap off something you did in the noughties? I don't know. You're still dining out on that? You're still dining out on the fact that your like children are kind of now more famous than you and you're going to your daughter's wedding and that's the only way you can get press? You can only get press by calling out your daughter in songs? Interesting. I have no tolerance for men today, clearly. But anyway, Eminem, why is he top of the flops? This song, Houdini, references Megan Thee Stallion. It's being perceived, and I'm interpreting it, as a diss at Megan Thee Stallion. And girls, we've talked about Kendrick and Drake around here, you know what I mean? I like a diss track. I said for diss tracks to be effective, they need to be mean, specific, and good. Like, they need to sonically be good, right? But when I say mean, I mean that from the perspective of men being mean to each other, because as we know, the patriarchy, the men are all predominantly, if we're going to talk about straight men, right, they're all on an even playing field. So like, yeah, okay, talk shit about each other, grand. Someone's hiding a child? Absolutely, I want to hear about that. What I will not tolerate is a man who is so far past the prime of his career coming after a woman who has been the victim of violence by another man. In this song, Houdini, there is a line that says, if I was to ask for Megan Thee Stallion if she would collab with me, would I really have a shot at a feat? Feat as in short for feature. That is a reference to when Megan Thee Stallion was shot in the foot by Tory Lanez, July 2020, which he is now currently serving a 10-year prison sentence for. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. The line isn't even good. If I like it, the line is the most basic fucking, and the delivery of it is like, I went on my holidays and I bought an ice cream. You pathetic. You are, shut up, old man. Shut up. Shut actually up. And like, I don't mean to sound like flippant or dismissive here. This is an account that I shout out constantly. You need to be following Darkest Hue on Instagram. They are doing an incredible amount of work around education, around stuff like this, and why it's really insidious. It's not funny, it's not rap beef, it's not playful, it's not people misinterpreting things. People have been constantly having like takes and shots at Megan over the situation in which she was a victim of violence and suffered an injury at the hands of another man. That's not an even playing field. For a man to come after a woman like that in the case of violence like this is pathetic as his last trick in inverted commas. Anyway, sorry, to go back to that Darkest Hue account. A lot of education and a lot of getting people to understand about how insidious misogynoir is and how badly it affects like black women and how we need to be speaking up and doing something to stop it. And how much men get away with this, and it's loser behaviour. It is loser behaviour. And I meant it back then when I said about like the only press he seems to be able to get is when he's milking off that daughter Hailey. She got married, like they got a news cycle out of that. In this specific song, he calls his children brats, so Hailey reacted, he got a news cycle out of that. Like, come back to me when you've actually done something worth talking about within the last, I don't know, 5 years? When was the last time Eminem was relevant? Be honest. Be honest now. Let's all be honest with ourselves. And you should be honest with yourself too, Eminem. And this really should be your last trick and you should disappear. Harry Houdini, out of this gaff, I'm sick of ya. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode. Oh my God. Rant over, girls. Thank you for listening. We're over on Patreon. Would you like more content? You can get it over there. You're going to get 3 episodes a month. Myself and Owen Keane. We're starting a new series this month. New series of Bot Culture. And I will be posting a poll on Patreon, which you can vote in. and let me know what you want us to watch. Padraig Wilson McCarthy is going to be joining me this month. We are going to be talking about Top of the Flops, mid-year check-in. What do we think is Top of the Flops? Do you have any suggestions? Let me know. We're on social media. You can let me know there. It's @flopculture_pod. Wherever you follow accounts on Instagram and TikTok. I'd love some reviews. We're nearly at 300 reviews on Spotify. So please leave a 5-star review. It helps people find the podcast. Love you all. Love the listeners. Hello to recent patrons. Hello to Mia Vocal. Thank you for being a patron. Appreciate it. You can also get the audio only on Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe in feed there. I will see you next week. This episode has been edited by the lovely Adam Shanahan. Can't wait to chat to you next week. Bye.